And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to take note, probably on a less than positive note, as I opened up the Island Farmer this morning and saw an article that was written about a motion that the National Farmers Union had made about me in particular at their meeting, and they took exception to my Simpsons reference from earlier in the session. Some of you may recall it, some of you may not. I thought it was funny. I meant for it to be funny. Some took it as such, and apparently the National Farmers Union has not. But you know what, Mr. Speaker? What I've always believed in and I've been taught, and I always tell other people, particularly young people, if you're getting criticized for how you say something and not what you said, then you're right. And the fact that the National Farmers Union could only find fault with how I said something and not what I said shows that I'm right. On the topic, on the topic of being right, and on the topic of criticizing somebody for how they say something versus what they've said, I want to read to you an excerpt. And every Saturday evening we've made it a little tradition in our house with the young babies that we listen to the hoedown. So we turn on the hoedown. The kids recognize now the first song because that's the staple of the opening. So we listen to it until it's time for them to go to bed, and sometimes we leave it on ourselves for a little while afterwards, and sometimes we just turn it on and I go to watch the Canadians win, which doesn't always happen either on Saturday night. But this one particular Saturday night, and it's really bothered me, Mr. Speaker, and it's really bothered me that the hoedown is a family show. Everybody I know who doesn't live here anymore, who's moved to Calgary or British Columbia, they tune into the hoedown in the middle of the afternoon where they live. It's a family thing, and it's meant to be positive and instill positivity and positive feelings, and it has positive memories for me. When I hear singing in the kitchen, I can picture being in my grandparents' kitchen, sitting on the couch listening to that on Saturday night 40 years ago. Not giving my age away, but 40-some years ago. So this particular night, this ad comes on, and I'm going to read you a part of it, Mr. Speaker, and it says, in PEI, large transcontinental corporations and foreign investors are in control. Industrial agriculture is destroying the land and water, and government claims that PEI needs the economic gains which come from abuse of the land. And that belongs to a group that the National Farmers Union is a member of and who they also support. And I take exception not with how it's said, but what was said. And there's a bunch of things that are mixed in with that, notwithstanding the untruths that are in there. But there seems to be a bit of racism that doesn't sit well with me. And I assume they're talking about the monks who live in the district that I live in. And I take great exception with the land issue and racism coming hand in hand. If you have an issue with how much somebody owns, I get that. That's fine. And there's a way to discuss that doesn't involve disparaging somebody's race or disparaging them because they're not from here, or in this case, foreign investors, as they're called. But we all know who they're talking about, and I think it was gutless play, Mr. Speaker. And I will say how I have met with the monks. I met with the female monks. I met with them all. They are wonderful people. They are not here. They are not here to create negativity here in Prince Edward Island. They're here for positivity. When I talked to them most recently about our net zero plans, they were super excited, and they said, that's what we want to build. That's what we're trying to build. And I think in the not too distant future, you're going to see the goals of the government and the goals of the Buddhist community come into line here in Prince Edward Island. So I'd ask anybody who has tendencies to look at a group like that in that manner to hold their fire. You're wrong. And if you have issue with land holdings in Prince Edward Island, talk about land holdings, and let's put to bed once and for all this racist mentality that I don't subscribe to, and no Islander I talk to on a daily basis subscribes to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.